Hi, this is John Harcher, and welcome to episode 48 of Keep On Grooving. Well, this one's a little different than I thought it would be, only because of what I thought would be out by now. But we'll work our way through it. Episode 48, The Electric Lady Studio Sessions, June through August 1970. Well, this was supposed to be the episode on this date. It's just, it was supposed to have an entry before it. We were all excited when the box set that was leaked in January of 2022 was finally set to come out on September 13th. Then we got the email that was pushed back to October 4th. It put a hiccup in my plans, but nothing too drastic. So we'll do this episode as it was when it was supposed to come out. Then when we're done, I'll lay out the rest of the plans. So we're going to do this sort of the same way we did the sessions for the other albums. Just go by the date and what was recorded. In this case, we'll also have a lot of the mixing sessions because those are important markers as well, since Jimmy didn't get a chance to finish a lot of the material there. So those mixes will give us a look into what Jimmy's plans were for those songs. We'll also include where these songs can be found, including what's coming up on the box. We'll go into the whole lead up to the studio's opening next time on audio, so let's jump right into the actual recording sessions. Jimmy's first day in the studio was June 15, 1970. To get things warmed up, he, Billy, and Mitch recorded All God's Children. Whether this would be an instrumental or a backing track for later vocals is not known, but it let the band get used to the new facilities. This first showed up on West Coast Seattle Boy. Jimmy next decided to do a wholesale revamp of the Easy Rider recording done back in December 1969 with the band of Gypsies. This remix was released on the Purple Box in 2000. Later that night, when Jimmy brought Steve Winwood and Chris Wood by to see the studio, he played them this mixed. They were so impressed the decision was made to have the two record backing vocals for the song. After that came the time when they wanted to jam at 2 a.m. and got engineer Dave Palmer out of bed across the street to play the drums. The Hendrix Chris Wood jam remains unreleased, but Jimmy and Steve's version of Valleys of Neptune will be appearing on the Electric Lady Studio box. We'll talk about all the tracks once that set is out. The next night, June 16th, Jimmy started to change shifts passing in the night into Nightbird Flying by taking it in a more countrified direction. One of these early takes will be on the box set. This was followed by the band doing a little jam entitled Messing Around. There's been talk about other possible takes, but the one included on the set will be around a minute 37 or so. The rest of the night's work is currently unreleased. The first studio work on Straight Ahead was followed by the trio's version of Jam Back in the House, retitled Beginning from this point forward. They also laid down a basic track for Freedom, which had earlier been a demo at the record plant. That version came out on West Coast Seattle Boy. So on to June 17th, the band did more work on Straight Ahead. This had begun as a live jam. The best-known early version was done at the second set, Berkeley. After some work the night before, they recorded some basic tracks on this night. The full start and full take will be out on the new box. Also included there will be some of the band's work on Bob Dylan's Drifter's Escape. The first two takes of that session will also be on the box. On June 18th, Jimmy and Eddie Kramer worked on overdubs and a new mix of Easy Rider. This would include working the backing vocals recorded the other night into the new version, as well as Hendrix's old friends Arthur and Albert Allen, aka the Ghetto Fighters. I don't think they'd been credited on any earlier version, so this is news to me. We'll have to do an A-B when the set is out if you can still hear the other guys on the originally released version. The band then went off on one of their weekend concert circuits. They didn't return to the studio until June 24th for a very busy session. First was a lot of work on Astroman. The song started out as a jam during the Band of Gypsies sessions in January. It was here the song began to take shape. The box set will be including 3 takes. 9 and 10 as one track, and a long take 14 running over 8 minutes. My buddy Keith DeLang put together this entire session from Boots, so what's coming out on the box is probably the best of these. After a while working on this song, he decided to move on to one of his older songs, Cherokee Mist. but it wasn't a carbon copy of the one from the Electric Ladyland sessions that was released on both sides of the sky. This was actually released earlier on the Purple Box back in 2000. They started with the familiar pattern of the song, then after around 3 minutes it moves into what would become the turnaround to In From the Storm. Next, Jimmy starts working on a melody that would later turn up in loose form as slow part, later called Paley Gap. They go back into the In From the Storm part, and this is where the Purple Box version ends. But it was not the end of the jam. Without barely taking a break, Jimmy moves right into Valleys of Neptune. The band does a solid 4-minute version before bringing it to a close. Now, the whole 10.5-minute sequence has been booted for years, but the annoying part is whoever did it put a very heavy echo on it. So if you join the Purple Box Cherokee Mist to the bootleg Valleys of Neptune, there's a big difference in the two parts. Here's hoping we can someday get a clean version of Valleys. They did some more work on Astro Man, but this didn't amount to much. To rev things up, Jimmy goes into the old blues number farther on up the road. This is more well-known these days from Eric Clapton's live versions from the 70s and 80s. That notoriety helped this track be a popular one on the bootleg circuit, even though it's not a fully realized take. But we will be getting the full version of that recording on the box set. We'll also be getting one of the missing holy grails of the Hendrix catalog, a 26-minute musical passage known as the Long Medley. In some ways, it's sort of an extended overture to what the next album might have become. Dave Palmer had just begun changing the reels during a take of Astro Man. As that wound down, Jimmy moves into Beginning, aka Jam Back at the House. It's a bit of a struggle to get the song going, but eventually it gets into a groove. Then they go into Hey Baby, complete with Jimmy getting the lyrics right. I'm just waiting for the AI fixed version of the Rainbow Bridge take to show up any time now. It's a full version, maybe among the first complete ones of the song. Next was a mashup of Straight Ahead Midnight Lightning known as Keep On Moving. The medley finishes up with a full instrumental version of Freedom, a great piece of work that highlights the new material Jimmy had been coming up with, plus how good the band was as a unit at that point. The next day, June 25th, they continued work on Astro Man, achieving the basic track that would serve as the final master a few weeks later. They went back to Valleys of Neptune, but again, didn't get far. Then the band turned to a new song, Drifting. The box will be giving us the first 2 takes as a single track. Some of the work done this day made it into the final version when it was finally completed after Jimmy's passing. Another song that received a basic track that would last through the end of the sessions was Freedom. We'll be getting the bare bones version of this one on the box. There's also notations that work was done on Room Full of Mirrors. At the end of the night, Jimmy decided to take stock into what he had and what he was working on, so if he wanted to do a double album, he'd know what he would have to work with. In his mind, he had backing tracks finished for the following songs: Easy Rider, Room Full of Mirrors, Earth Blues, Straight Ahead, Freedom, Stepping Stone, Isabella with a note that it needs a new mix, Astro Man, and Nightbird Flying. He also listed Drifter's Escape and Burning Desire, but had question marks next to them. Burning Desire is interesting because, as you'll see, he would not do any further work on the track at Electric Lady, not even laying down a vocal. He also made a note to get the master tape for Highway Child. Now, does this mean he wanted to do a remix on it, similar to what he did with Burning the Midnight Lamp on Electric Ladyland? Or was he possibly looking towards another album he needed to do? The mention of the song on this notation during the session may have partially prompted Eddie Kramer to include the song on War Heroes a couple years later. There's also some documentation that Angel was worked on this date as well. June 26 may be called the Band of Gypsies Revisited sessions. They started the night taking a listen to the studio work they'd done on Message to Love, but decided not to do anything with it. Power of Soul had received a mix back on February 3rd, but this was also passed over. It's likely Jimmy felt these songs were on the Band of Gypsies album, so there was no need to put them on his new album. However, it's possible he had other ideas for them as he would return to them later. More about this in a little bit. They did decide, however, to do work on a couple of other Band of Gypsies era numbers. This session was of particular interest to our old Hoffman board buddy Chris M. He wasn't 100% sure Mitch Mitchell had done any overdubs to any Buddy Miles tracks while Jimmy was alive. This date was out there, but there had been mistakes before, so this was a possibility. Unfortunately, Chris is no longer with us. Had this set come out around the time it was leaked, we would have had confirmation, but he's probably talked to Jimmy about it already. We miss you, Chris. So first up was Earth Blues, where Jimmy did get additional guitar work done as well as Mitch's new drums. We'll be getting a different mix of the song on the new box. They did the same with Stepping Stone, new drums and new guitar parts. This is the version that first showed up on War Heroes, then later the Essential Jimi Hendrix and First Rays of the New Rising Sun. They also did work on Bleeding Heart. This was originally recorded sometime in March of 1970 at the record plant with a different drummer, so Mitch put his part over this. A mix of this different from the War Heroes one will be on the box set. Jimmy and Billy then went to do more work on Valleys of Neptune, coming up with a full demo with lyrics that will be on the box. The final work they did this night was on a new song Jimmy had come up with, either known as Can I Whisper in Your Ear or Heaven Has No Sorrow. The full session has made the rounds for years on bootlegs. It starts out with a little ditty called Little Dog of Mine. They then did several takes of the main song. The longest section will be the one that shows up on the box. Part of the main melody is similar to Send My Love to Linda, so it may be a further development of that song. They then had the show in Boston on Saturday, but returned to the studio on Monday, June 29th. The main focus of work this day was trying out various different effects to put onto Drifting. He was looking to do something similar to what he did on 1983 A Merman I Should Turn to Be. He started off the sessions by announcing his intentions. Let me do some sea sounds. And as his previous recordings played, he did the noises in specific places. Now, almost none of this work made the later finished recording, but it's been a popular bootleg track. The box will give us a nicely mixed version of that. The next day, June 30th, Jimmy worked on mixes and overdubs for Freedom and Drifter's Escape, none of which ended up being used later on. Now we come to the big day, July 1st, 1970. This day has come to be looked on as the most productive day for original material during the whole 2 months Jimmy worked at the studio. And it's hard to argue against that conclusion. The session began work on Jimmy's newest song, Dolly Dagger. They tried 17 takes before the 18th captured the song in full. We'll be getting this take along with a piece of number 17 on the box. Take 19 would be the one to provide the final master. That's the one where, as the song came to a close, they kept on playing, did a little bit of Gimme Some Lovin', then eventually made their way into something Jimmy called Slow Part. After it ended, he went back and overdubbed another guitar part on top of what was there. This is what eventually became known as Paley Gap, first from Rainbow Bridge, then later released on Voodoo Soup and South Saturn Delta. We'll be getting a 5.1 mix of this on the Blu-ray included with the box, so we'll deal with it then. The Bolero Hey Baby medley was recorded next. Had we not gotten a full version of this back on West Coast Seattle Boy, this would have been a real revelation. As it is, it's nice to have, plus we'll be getting Jimmy's mix of this as opposed to the one from the previous box, which was done in 2010 or so. Then we get another one of the long-awaited tracks. It's always been a matter of speculation which version of Midnight Lightning Alan Douglas used as a base to his overdub one on the album of the same name in 1975. We now have the answer. It's this one. The song has been out on bootlegs for decades, but now we get the full original track, newly mixed, but we also get an additional piece. Towards the end, the band does a little snippet of Beginning. This leads into the version of that song that we get on War Heroes, only this one will be unedited. The next day, July 2nd, they did overdubs on Dolly Dagger, but the important work was done on Easy Rider. The last of the overdubs were done here. Jimmy also recorded a demo for Belly Button Window, a song he continued to work on. He also recorded some work with Juma Sultan and flautist Kenyatta Arrington. After that, it was off to Atlanta Pop, Miami, and some vacation time. The band returned to the studio on July 14th. They began work on another new song of Jimmy's, Come Down Hard on Me. This was sort of based on his arrangement of Bleeding Heart, but moved solidly into funk territory. There may have also been pieces of this from the Band of Gypsies jam Honeybed back in, I think, December. In fact, Buddy probably could have done great on this song. It's right in his four on the floor wheelhouse. Boy, Purple Jim's going to hate thinking about that. He tried Midnight Lightning, similar to the effort from 2 weeks ago, but didn't get far. The band then did some standalone versions of Bolero. John McDermott has high praise for some of these takes, as he mentions in Ultimate Hendrix. Might have been nice to get one on the box. Oh well, maybe next time. July 15th was focused on Come Down Hard on Me. The band did a number of takes that day. When the song first came out on Loose Ends, engineer John Jansen took 2 takes of the song and edited them together. Then when Alan Douglas did the song on Crash Landing, he'd had Jeff Baranoff do a screaming counterpoint to Jimmy's beat that's kind of annoying. The song really didn't need it. Then when he looped the bridge lyrics, he didn't loop the first line. How tough is it to loop just 4 lines, Alan? We finally got a full take of this released on the Purple Box. The new box set will have a different instrumental one. It was off to the New York Pop Festival that weekend. I wonder why they didn't keep doing studio work since they were hanging around town. They did return there on Sunday, July 19th. First up was Freedom. Jimmy did a new lead vocal, then did some doubling on top of that. He also did a new lead guitar, which was really heavy on the bass, similar to Clapton's Woman tone from his Cream days. Billy and Mitch also did some overdubs on their parts. We'll be getting a mix of this session on the new box that's actually been bootlegged for years. A new vocal for Nightbird Flying was also done. A Dolly Dagger mix that we'll be getting on the box was done, as well as mixes for Astro Man Straight Ahead, and work was mostly finished for Drifter's Escape. There was one more little bit recorded during this session. During concerts, Jimmy had come up with this riff, and you could hear it clearly in Voodoo Child in Woodstock, as he's going. So Jimmy must have been playing around with it in the studio, so Eddie Kramer asked him, Jimmy, play that riff. So Jimmy plays the riff. They recorded it. Eddie says thank you. And then they actually mixed that, a 35-second track there. What were they going to use that for? Who knows? I mean, they took time to mix it and everything. This little bit ended up on West Coast Seattle Boy. On July 20th, they achieved, in my opinion, something that had eluded them since the latter days of the Are You Experienced sessions, a solid studio version of Loverman. When we first heard this on the Purple Box, it was like, how is this not put out sooner? It's almost identical to the Berkeley version from In the West that essentially acted as the official version of the song. Now, the studio one lacked full polish, but it was as solid a version as we would get. This is the only song that appears on the box that was previously released. When we go over the actual set, I'll talk about what might have replaced it. It's coming up soon. And also what other tracks might be added so it wouldn't be the only previously released track on the set. That day, they also did some more work on Dolly Dagger, and Ultimate Hendrix has them working on Angel as well. July 21st featured work on another new song at this point called Tune X Just Came In. Billy said it was put together in Jimmy's hotel room based around some riffs they did on Cherokee Mist a few weeks back. Again, this shows how having his own studio and clearing up a lot of legal issues helped his mind focus on new material. After they finished work on this song, they did one take of Hear My Train A-Comin'. Ultimate Hendrix lists this as spirited. Why don't we get it? The next day, July 22nd, featured more work on Tune X. We'll be getting 2 takes on the new box, a short take 6 and a long take 8. This should be interesting. Emerita Marks also did her work on the song the same day. It was mixed along with Come Down Hard on Me. July 23rd featured work on the 2 main ballads Jimmy was working on. First came Drifting and more overdubs, trying out all kinds of sounds. One of them even included a speaker in an actual bucket of water. Jimmy also did backwards guitar dubs, some of which did end up on the final recording. Then it was the recording of Angel that we'd all come to know. Take 7 would prove to be the master. This will not only be on the box, but it'll also be released as a promo single for the set. It's already up on YouTube. This is another song that had a very long gestation period, all the way back to just after Axis Boulder's Love came out. Now the song would finally come to life. The session ended with a single band take of Belly Button Window that will also be getting on the box. After that, it was off to the West Coast, Hawaii, the Rainbow Bridge Film and Concert, and a couple weeks of vacation. The band returned to the studio on August 14th. Jimmy decided to make another list of songs that could be possibly considered for his new album, whatever form it would take. He had written down song lists for Straight Ahead, spelled S-T-R-A-T-E. The songs listed were Easy Rider, Room Full of Mirrors, Earth Lose Today, Valleys of Neptune, Cherokee Mist, he has noted this is going to be an instrumental, Freedom, Stepping Stone, Isabella, Astroman, Drifter's Escape, Bleeding Heart, Burning Desire, Nightbird Flying, Electric Lady, Slow, Getting My Heart Back Together Again, Loverman, Midnight Lightning, Heaven Is No Tomorrow, /Slow, Sending My Love, /Slow to Medium, This Little Boy, Locomotion, Dolly Dagger, and The New Rising Sun, Hey Baby. Many of these we've gotten in full form, some we've gotten bits and pieces of. There has been some speculation that Electric Lady Slow may be Paley Gap. It's also interesting that Heaven Has No Sorrow, listed as Tomorrow, and Sending My Love are both listed. Like I said earlier, it sounds like some of the melody is shared between the two. Then there are the songs Locomotion and This Little Boy. There's a demo on the Black Gold tape that still hasn't been released called Local Commotion. There's speculation this could be Locomotion. And I could have sworn I saw something about This Little Boy turning up on something, at least a demo. I can't place it though. The actual session work this day consisted of overdubs and mixing for Dolly Dagger and Freedom. After a few days off, they came back on August 18th for Dolly Dagger overdubs, including the background vocals from the Ghetto Fighters. August 20th began final mixing work for everything they'd done over the past couple of months. They first did In From the Storm overdubs, and then the band performed a quick number, Slow Blues. It was quick because that tape ran out after 1:45. This would be the last full band recording done at the studio. As for mixes done that day, they did Straight Ahead, Room Full of Mirrors, Easy Rider, In From the Storm, Drifting, Angel, Belly Button Window, Dolly Dagger, and Freedom. With the exception of Room Full of Mirrors, none of these would be the mix that would be released on later albums. The version of Drifting mixed here does turn up on the new box. A couple of days later, on August 22nd, there will be another big mixing session. It's become known as the Motherload, with the amount of songs done that we wouldn't get later work on. Straight Ahead, Easy Rider, Nightbird Flying, In From the Storm, and Astroman would all be redone. Jimmy's mixes on the following songs would be released on later albums: Drifter's Escape, Power of Soul, Bolero, Hey Baby, Come Down Hard on Me, Bleeding Heart, and Message of Love. Now, Jimmy's mixes on these next few songs have not been released yet: Midnight Lightning, Beginning, Drifting, and Cherokee Mist. After the mixing session, Jimmy did a solo Belly Button Window on his little 4-track recording unit with just him singing, a clean guitar, and a wah-wah overdub. Unfortunately, to the best of anyone's knowledge, this is the only one of those type of recordings that is known to still exist. On August 24th, Jimmy and Eddie did remixes on Dolly Dagger, Nightbird Flying, Easy Rider, In From the Storm, and Freedom, as well as one for the Belly Button Window demo. These would all be released on the album soon after his passing: Cry of Love and Rainbow Bridge. The wall were set for Cry of Love until Mike pulled Dolly Dagger. The next day they redid Straight Ahead and Astroman. These would be the ones that would appear on Cry of Love specifically. With these songs done, with a possible overdub left for Freedom, they definitely had enough for at least a single album. Jimmy's double album concept would have required more work. Then on August 26th, it was the test pressing of the Dolly Dagger Nightbird Flying single. Then on to the opening party, where those two songs, along with Easy Rider, Straight Ahead, were played for the attendees. After that, the band prepared to head off to Europe for a series of shows, a trip from which Jimmy would not return. So that's the breakdown of the Electric Lady sessions. My original intention was to do an unboxing video where we'd go over each track, then do this episode, followed by 2 more revolving around the box and its contents. Then the release date changed, so I went ahead with this anyway since the rundown could still be of interest without knowing exactly what's on the box. Now, provided it doesn't slip again, I will do the video showing what's on the box and going over how the tracks differ from what we know. Then we'll go back to audio for the next part of the series. Next time on audio, it'll be the history of the construction of the Electric Lady Studios, as well as a look at the documentary, which had a brief theatrical run this August and early September. That's next time on Keep On Grooving. Please hit the subscribe button if you like what you're hearing. I'm John Hardra. Thanks for listening.